Morning everyone, my name is Soto, and over the next 10 minutes today I want to talk to you about the exciting world of post-conversion filings. I have about 15 years of industry experience, so as you can imagine with that type of tenure, I've done probably every type of filing or project under the sun. And I would have to say, for some reason, post-conversions happen to be one of my favorites. Not a lot of people share that here in the company, and I think part of that's because they can be a little bit intimidating and complex in the beginning if you don't have a way to kind of wrap your head around it and understand it. So that's what I'm hoping I can introduce to you today, what some of the things that I do in terms of looking at post-conversions. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, obviously, we have to make sure we have an understanding of what post-conversion filings are. So by a raise of hands, anyone familiar with that term or what that means have heard of it before? All right, so seeing a few buy-ins. Okay, great. Well, most of the room. And that's also for anyone that doesn't, that's what we're going to be talking about. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, one of my favorite TV shows is Game of Thrones. So I want to use that as an example to kind of show you how post-conversions work. So let's say I own a company, Game of Thrones Fanatic Corporation. I decide to register it as a domestic corporation in the state of Delaware. And that's pretty common in our industry. No big deal. Great. So I do business for a few years as a corporation, Delaware domestic. Then after a few years, I work with my attorney, maybe my CPA, tax experts, that type of thing. And I realized maybe it's better for me as a corporate entity to be something else. Maybe I want to be an LLC now. Maybe there's certain benefits to that. So what do? Well, in a lot of states, when you have a domestic entity, you can file some type of domestic conversion filing to make your entity, take your entity from one type to another. So again, I have my Delaware corporation, and I decide to go ahead and work with my trusted CT service team and file a domestic conversion filing in Delaware to then become Game of Thrones Fanatic LLC. Every state's going to have a different process in terms of doing that. For example, Delaware would be a certificate conversion, but essentially that's what you're going to do. You're going to take your corporation and make it an LLC in your domestic state. So that's great. You know, I started as a Delaware corp, did business for a few years, and now I'm a Delaware LLC. That's awesome and wonderful, and there shouldn't be anything else, right? But wait, there's absolutely more. So the term post would suggest that there has to be something after, correct? And that's absolutely the case, and I think that's where a lot of people, both internally and even externally with our clients, tend to drop the ball. They forget about the post stuff, that something else has to happen. Believe it or not, a lot of clients do think that once you file the domestic state, that trickles down to every foreign state that you're qualified in. That would be nice, but that's not the reality that we live in, as we all know. You have to think about your foreign qualified states. So going back to my example, Game of Thrones Fanatic Corporation. I registered it in Delaware as domestic, and in those couple of years I was doing business as a corp, I also qualified it in, let's say, 20 states. So in 20 states, I'm on record as a foreign qualified corporation. I go ahead and do my conversion in Delaware, but I have to think about those 20 foreign states. I'm still on record in those states as a foreign qualified corporation. They don't know that this conversion happened in Delaware. All the states don't talk and speak to each other, and a magic button gets pressed, and all of a sudden your entity type changes. So that's essentially what a post-conversion filing is. We finally got to it. This is kind of my lay Soto definition of what a post-conversion filing is. It's not anything official, but essentially it's those type of documents that you file in the foreign qualified states of your company to affect or show that a conversion has happened in the home state. That's what a post-conversion is. And that's the difference between the conversion filing in the home state and then what you do in the foreign states. The foreign states are that after effect, thus post. All right, so I personally think that the hardest part about the post-conversions is just understanding what they are. So hopefully, in that little brief introduction, I've kind of helped show you what post-conversions are, what they mean. So now I want to go over some things that I try to do when I'm tackling a post-conversion filing project. Again, as being part of the SWAT team, Special Projects team, we deal with these quite a lot, and we deal with large ones. We're not just doing, you know, 1 or 2 states usually. It'll be a 50-state post-conversion filing project, or even more than that if I'm doing multiple entities in the same project. So there are kind of some things that I like to do to make sure I'm organized and I understand what's going on. So first and foremost, like I was saying before, the conversion has to happen in the home state. Home state is where everything happens and it kind of trickles down from there. So you have to make sure that happens first. You can't do the post stuff till the home state is taken care of. And again, like I was indicating before, it's going to vary by state, but it's going to be some type of domestic conversion filing that gets into effect in the home state. Once that's taken care of, that's when you really get into the post-conversion world. And so the first thing that you really need to do is you have to have a listing of the states where that entity is foreign qualified. Again, you can't file something somewhere if you don't know where the entity is foreign qualified. You can't do those post-conversion filings. Another key point about that listing that you want to think about is you want to go ahead and have the entity status in those states readily available as well. The reason for that is if there's any compliance or not in good standing type of issues, more than likely you're going to have to deal with that first before you can even get into the world of the post-conversion filings. So it's good, again, to have that listing of the foreign qualified states along with their status. And really the great way to do this is using our offshore core team to do one of those 50 state audits, which they can do very quickly and easily. As part of SWAT, we always require a core audit to be part of a post-conversion filing project that we get from service teams. We make it mandatory because it really gives you so much information at a glance to be able to tackle the project. At that point, then you're really just going into the research and gathering forms area of the project, and Knowledge Express is really my go-to, as well as some of my team's internal resources and so forth that we have to gather that information together and gather all the forms. We are dealing with over 50 different jurisdictions. They all have their different processes, rules, and statutes. So you're not really going to be doing, for the most part, the same thing everywhere. And so it's really good to have your detailed research and understand what each state's going to require in order to affect that post-conversion. I can tell you that in the world of post-conversions, most of the time you're going to be doing something to the effect of withdrawing the first entity and requalifying the second entity. So again, going to my Game of Thrones example, in most cases I would be withdrawing Game of Thrones Fanatic Corp and then qualifying Game of Thrones Fanatic LLC. That's, in a lot of the states, their process for post-conversions. Another big thing that I always like to look at is the supporting documentation aspect. So again, these other states where the entity is foreign qualified, they want to make sure the conversion happened in the home state. They're not going to take your word for it. They need to know that this actually happened. And most of the time they're going to ask for some type of supporting doc to show that. The ones that they typically ask for are a good standing certificate, so they want to know that entity's in good standing and it shows its new type, the name, and so forth. A certified copy of what was filed to affect that conversion, or a certificate of fact reciting conversion, which we call internally a cert-ray. Sometimes that could be the more tricky one because not every state will issue a cert-ray, but I like to get that information if I can know that ahead of time so I know how to deal with those issues later down the road. And then finally, I just think it's really important that both you and the client have a clear understanding of the process of what's going on. One of the big things I think clients run into in terms of the issue is not understanding that in the post-conversion world, in a lot of cases, again, you're doing a withdrawal and new qualification. So many states, they view you as a new entity. You lose some of that filing history, your state ID, and the clients don't typically want that. They want to keep that. That's not always possible. So getting ahead of the game in terms of that, having that conversation, I always feel is a lot easier. All right, so you might think I gave you a lot of information, so that must be it. There's nothing else you need to know about post-conversions. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. I could be here for days going over post-conversions, but hopefully I gave you a good breakdown to understand how to maybe try to tackle that. There are additional resources, like I mentioned before. KE is a great one. Our wonderful friends at FCOE are also great. They can help clarify things that KE maybe doesn't explain. But before I go, I need to give the biggest shout out to my own team as a wonderful resource for post-conversions, the SWAT team. Again, we have so much experience, over 60 years of tenure between the 9 team members and our manager. We've done tons of post-conversions. We really are experts. So you can definitely reach out to us. We have lots of resources. If you're a Service Cloud user, you can chatter at us. If you're a non-Service Cloud user, that's our team email address, our team phone number. You can also Skype us individually. Email us individually. We'd be really happy to help. Again, this is what we do, and we want to share that information and make it easier for everyone. Any questions about the exciting world of post-conversion?
right, no questions?